or to suit something which works well for their client.
It is the job of the lobbyist to push for that.
It is their task. What is the job of the journalist in this position is to find holes and to check out that whether the arguments ring true and whether there is a national loss or not. That's the role that I would ascribe.
One of the most shocking tapes in the 104 that are there actually doesn't involve a journalist. It involves a conversation between Ms. Radia and somebody from a company that is involved in the gas and telecoms business, etc. And there's a reference that Ms. Radia makes to how a senior law officer of the government of India tells a telecom company that got cheated out of spectrum because of DOT's policies, don't worry, don't go to court, you need spectrum, I will get you spectrum. Right, so this is highly improper, inappropriate.
You know the conversations with a senior representative of an industry association, the conversation with a gentleman who's one of the leading industrialists of this country, the conversation with a gentleman who's related to a former Prime Minister of India or close, considered close to me, are as revealing as the conversations with the journalists.
And what do they reveal to you?
They reveal that lobbyists wield a huge amount of influence in the working of India's polity because of the nexus between big business and politics.
And it's seamless between, parties can come and go. In this case, BJP is out. But a gentleman who wielded influence in that government is today talking of...
So from the point of view of the media, is it basically because of the way the media is now? There's so much of competition, the plethora of channels. There was a time when the PR people and the lobbyists maybe ran after the journalists. Now the journalists have to cultivate their sources so that they get that interview and they get that news break and they get that source.
One is the pressure of time. One is the pressure of time. Second is the pure pleasure of obviously other inducements which are being bandied around. The fact is that none of the people involved in this can be called innocent on the charge of not trading other favors. The fact is that is the part which is not there in the tapes. What you're hearing is only exchange of information, which is natural when a conversation takes place. You don't talk about other issues.
So you're hearing exchange of information, but again we come down to that point that it doesn't really prove anything. There is no proof of a quid pro quo.
Absolutely. No, I want to be very clear. I want to be very clear here that I think, and we need to be fair here, that in the conversations involving journalists, there is no evidence or suggestion of quid pro quo, nor actually is there any suggestion of having them linked to the 2G scam
or any financial transaction.
So whereas I think what it reveals is a certain coziness, a certain proximity, which I think is not confined just confined to them. I think this is a problem that at senior levels in our profession, where you interact with ministers, you interact with businessmen, it is seductive, it's a narcotic, and people get high on that, right? So there is a problem with that, and this has an impact in a whole range of ways. You were talking of interviews. Now you take, and I'm going to take this name here, but Mr. P. Chidambaram is pretty niggardly with the interviews that he gives, right? And it's very, the one journalist who gave him a rough ride has never been called back to interview him again.
Right.
And every channel basically is desperate to get 5 minutes with him, but you can't ask, and it's the same thing with LK Advani. LK Advani was so, conjuice about who he gave interviews to.
Right.
Right. So they play this competition, and this is,
they play the competition, and it's particularly so with corporates, isn't it? Because as you've pointed out many times, the economy of the media is corporate. We are dependent on advertising, and therefore the relationship between journalists and corporates tends to be a little less adversarial than it is with politicians and journalists, which is why the work of the lobbyists may become a little easier.
But wait, let's look at it positively also. I was a member of a subcommittee of a Press Council of India, and with my colleague Srinivas Reddy, we prepared a 71-page report running into 36,000 words on corruption in the Indian media and paid news and how it undermines democracy. Eventually the council, in its wisdom, pared it down to 1/10 of its size before it was presented to the government. That's a separate matter. But once it went into the public domain, even if it was not official,